So now the narrative is that we should all get along, stop the fanboyism, kumbaya, let's just do that. All these media outlets, that's what they're saying now. And I call bullshit. Hey there, fools. Big T here, and I'm back with another video. And this is a video that's kind of been in the works for some time now. I guess I needed a little something extra to add to it to make it a complete video. I didn't just want to just like start the camera and start babbling about something. But I'm gonna encompass kind of two things that are related in this video, and it's about me calling bullshit on a lot of the gaming media and some gaming YouTubers who are also considered media on this whole notion of let's be adults, let's stop the fanboyism. When these guys, not all of them, but a lot of them, engaged in for years the console wars, fanboyism, flaming, just throwing fire on the kerosene or throwing fire on the gasoline arguments of fanboys. And they've done it for years. They did it for clicks and they did it for views, and they were unapologetic and it was obvious. And now they're the adults, and they love this whole new get along gang style mentality that's come with the gaming industry now. And let's do crossplay, everybody. Let's all enjoy everything and all have fun together and kumbaya. And I'm calling bullshit on it. Like, the idea of that is a good thing. But these same people were the ones who stoked these flames for years, going back, to the PS3 versus Xbox 360. These are the same media outlets that did that, and it's sad and funny to see this so-called turnaround, but only because it's beneficial and people. There are a lot of people that agree with it, and more people into gaming now, and a lot of them have never been a part of the whole fanboy stuff. I've even talked about the fact that I was never a part of Super Nintendo versus Sega Genesis, like a schoolyard type of deal. I was of age at that time. I was, middle school and whatnot, but I never engaged in any of that stuff because I just like games and I like what I had at the moment. Like, I talk about the NES and how, everybody had an NES. So it wasn't like, oh man, I love Nintendo. Gaming was just Nintendo. It was like, I'm going to play Nintendo when you're talking about games. So it wasn't like Nintendo was the best, and they were, but a lot of it had to do with them holding some people back. But they were the best, and they were there for me at that time. My first introduction into gaming was, it's murky because we're talking about really early memories, was arcade slash ColecoVision. Like, I love the ColecoVision. I played some Atari, a lot of Atari actually, but ColecoVision was the first system that really clicked with me. And I talk about how my first console that I actually owned was the Atari 5200, which was a piece of shit, but I loved it because it was my console. And I owned like 4 games for it, and that's all I had. And my mom bought it for like $50, and brand new, because it bombed so terribly. It was a good piece of garbage console, but I loved it. It was my console. So I'm getting in the weeds there, but just talking about the NES, like, I wasn't like a fanboy or anything at the time. I just loved Nintendo. Everybody loved Nintendo at that time. And when the Sega Genesis came out, it was just like, oh, they're doing something different. It's kind of arcadey, and I like what they're doing. So I jumped on Sega Genesis. I actually got a Genesis before I got a Super Nintendo, and I played that. And then it wasn't like, oh man, I got to go get a Super Nintendo, until I saw my cousin, whose birthday is actually today. Damn, we're getting old. He had a Super Nintendo. I think he got it for Christmas or something. And I was like, I saw the giant bullet bill in Super Mario World, and I was like, I gotta have that. This is blows the NES away, and I haven't really seen anything like that on Genesis at that time. So I was like, I gotta have a Super Nintendo, and that's when I I politicked my mom and my dad for a Super Nintendo, and I eventually got that, and the rest is history. But so I had a Super Nintendo and a Genesis, so I was never on the. I had both, and I understand like people, if you only had one, people would go back and forth with each other. I think I saw that a little bit, but not a whole lot. We just, when I was in school, it was all about, what are you playing? Can I come over and play your system that I don't have? And can I go over and play your system that I don't have? That kind of thing. So, I mean, that existed, obviously, if you saw the commercials and stuff. But it was mostly on the Sega side. Sega was the one that really went after Nintendo, which made sense because Nintendo was the big boy. They had all the chips. They were the epitome of gaming at the time. So it made sense for little, upstart, if you will, Sega to go after Nintendo as hard as they did. So I guess that kind of sparked like the commercial fanboy wars, if you will, and it kind of spilled over a little bit in the school. But I didn't really see it that much, like I said. So obviously, mostly we're talking about where it really careened out of control. I think, I guess you can say PS2 and 64 a little bit, but as far as the media goes, it was probably OG Xbox, PlayStation 2, into 360, PS3, and it just continued on. And it's like hip hop. It's like when you had battle raps or rappers going at each other. That sold magazines, the beefs and all that kind of stuff. Who's saying what about who? That stuff sold the Source. It sold those Double XL. It sold those magazines a lot. So people like Flame Wars. That sells. That's what sells. And so when we got into Wii U early, and then we got Xbox One and PS4, we know how that blew up. Xbox One fumbled pretty heavily out of the gate, as we all know. It's well documented. Wii U to some degree as well. Some of the marketing choices weren't the best, but I would contend that the media pretended not to understand the Wii U when they were right there with it, where everybody else wasn't. And if I'm getting it at home, why aren't you? Now Nintendo made some mistakes, like as far as like over showcasing the controller itself and not showing the console and showing what new capabilities it brought. But some of these outlets, media outlets, were doing stuff that I wouldn't be surprised if it came out at some point, like they were bought off, because we all, if you have any gaming history and understanding, Sony's done nefarious things back in the day to blunt the Dreamcast, and maybe I'll talk about that in the video if you don't really know. That's well documented. Xbox did the same when they came out. Xbox 360 for sure. They were buying exclusive this and that, and also PS3 faltered because of its infrastructure. How games were developed on it was a little tough. So again, it's always partially the manufacturer's fault, but some of these people blew it up out to the extreme, especially IGN. IGN totally unapologetically engaged in console wars with their articles and the way they would headline stuff, especially PS4 versus Xbox One. They really dug into that. And another little upstart at the time also did to extreme measures at many times, and that is Digital Foundry. A lot of Wii U fans, including myself, I never really talked about them that much back in those days, but they annoyed me with the way they would cover games and how they would basically focus on specs only, and just do the console war thing because they knew PS4 was slightly better than the Xbox One, and that little edge was enough to flame people out, make fanboys go crazy, and carry their badges and their pitchforks and all that silly stuff. And all these little tiny incremental things, fanboys could then run to comment sections and videos and whatnot and tout how their game or their console was better than the other one when it's just slightly better. I remember growing up, and I had this kid that used to try to rib me, try to pick on me, and we lived like literally next to each other. I mean, he was like one house over, the house in the middle of us. But he would try to act like he was better than me, like he had more. I think maybe his parents made $300 more a week than mine, so he was just better than us, and he would try to get in with the other kids and try to rib me. But I was having none of that, obviously. But it's that kind of mentality. Oh, you got a little bit more, and that's just enough to make this big gap and big deal about everything. And that's what these dudes fed off of. IGN got their clicks. Obviously, Digital Foundry got their views, and they know what they were doing. It's not like they didn't know what they were doing. They came into YouTube and they wanted to establish themselves, and a quick way to do that is to argue, is to flame, is to do that, that kind of thing. Some would say that that's what I did, but I didn't. I had people coming at me just because I was doing a different little cool little way of YouTube, being a Nintendo fan. Especially at that time, people would just jump on your back. It's like, well, I'm going to defend myself, and I'm really good and clever at doing that, and that pissed a lot of people off. So that got a lot of early attention to my channel, but it wasn't like that's not how I was coming to YouTube. I wasn't coming to YouTube to do that. Once I got attacked, then I'm really good at, clapping back, as they say. So that's what happened. But these dudes, now they don't want to take responsibility. Now they're the adults in the room, and I've seen articles and comments and whatnot from these outlets when they do their little videos on their websites and whatnot, trying to make fun of fanboys and whatnot. And I'm like, well, you stoked a lot of this shit. Like, you got to take some responsibility for the community that you helped to build. And now you're the adult, and now it's all kumbaya now. Like, fuck that. Like just let's be real. And I know Digital Foundry has kind of changed. They've actually made a lot of really good different types of videos. The DF retro stuff, I think a lot of those videos are pretty fantastic. And so they kind of changed with the times, because there's still that element of people who want to see things get ribbed and scream and yell and all that stuff. But I think that the times have changed slightly, where you don't get as much attention doing that kind of stuff. People want more, shall I say, more deeper content from YouTubers, because a lot of YouTubers are doing a lot more stuff production wise, and it wasn't like that really when I first came in. But now, like, a lot of these dudes, some of these people have separate editors and all kinds of stuff that they employ for their channels and stuff, which I think that's cool. But the way YouTube is going now, it's not very helpful to new up and coming YouTubers and a lot of the smaller channels like mine. So that's a whole nother video. But I'm just calling bullshit, because I think you're not gonna come in here and try to act like you're the adults now when you've partaken in the flame wars, and you've been a huge part of this, and you built yourselves up. And I think there's some people at Digital Foundry. I saw a tweet where he, I don't know who it was, I can't think of his name, but he was basically he did take responsibility. He said, yeah, when I got here, that's the kind of thing, but we've been trying to change that over time, and they've been a lot more fair when they cover stuff. They're like, well, for this console, this is pretty good, and that kind of thing, instead of just saying, this is unplayable, this one has, 4 more frames per second, so this is the better version. All that kind of silly stuff. They've kind of gone away from that, which I think is cool. So, but there's a lot more to atone for a lot of these different dudes. So, yeah, bullshit. I'm not having it. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Do you think these guys got nerve for trying to act like they're the adults in the room now, instead of taking responsibility for what they also helped to create? I do. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Thank you as always for watching and listening. And yes, that big beautiful Damon X Machina box, I will be unboxing that pretty soon. So stay tuned for that. And thanks for watching and listening. And now, see you fools next time. Peace out.
Jonah, I made it. I see the bridge.